swearing in the counselors.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. We'll do the swearing in first, perhaps with Arlen. Arlen, if you could stand in here. If you want it over there.
Where? Well, probably here would be a little bit better, but I don't. Your camera probably won't catch it. So anywhere where your camera can catch it, that's your priority for your broadcast. The flag should be fine.
We kind of have a leaning flag. Alberta's leaning.
It's leaning to the left. Right. Just wishful thinking. It's still right.
And if you could read that.
Read out, okay. I, Arlen Wortley, do swear that I will diligently, faithfully, and to the best of my ability, execute according to law the office of counselor for the town of High Prairie from February 9th, 2016 till October 23rd, 2017.
Gilroy?
All right. Okay.
Right hand. And if you could read that.
I, Brian Gilroy, do swear that I will diligently, faithfully, and to the best of my ability, execute according to law the office of counselor for the town of High Prairie from February 9th, 2016 until October 23rd, 2017.
Welcome.
Welcome to the new counselors. Adoption of the agenda. Any additions? No.
Move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Everybody in favor? Okay, we allow 15 minutes for scheduled delegations. Do we have a scheduled delegation? Public delegations. Any public delegations? Jump right into protective services. So that'd be 2C1, bylaw 3, 216, animal control, or?
First one would be the animal control bylaw.
We got a motion.
That council give first reading to the bylaw 03/2016, this 9th day of February 2016. Go ahead.
The amendments for this bylaw were to increase the fees and license fees for dogs that pertain to the bylaw here. The last change was back in 2003, so we just thought we'd update it, depending on what the council's decisions would be, to increase the license fee for dogs and pound fees and replacement fee for lost licenses. I did a poll, I canvassed some of the surrounding areas, and they range anywhere from $15 to $30 for unspaded or unneutered animals, and $10 to $25 for spayed and neutered. So there's a little bit of a range there, but pound fees range from $10 to $25 per day per dog. Replacement of license tags are anywhere from $1 up to $5. So I've proposed that this pertains to all new dog licenses, not existing dog licenses, which would remain the same. The new dog licenses would increase by $10 for unspayed or unneutered, and $40 for spayed, or flip that, $20 for spayed or neutered, and $40 for unspayed or unneutered. Pound fees would be increased from $12 to $20 a day, and the replacement tags at present is $5 for replacement. Increase that to $10. That's my recommendation.
I just have a question on page 21 of the agenda. It's got yearly license fee for neutered, spayed domestic animals is $20.
Yeah.
Yearly license fee for unneutered, unspayed animals is $20. You say that's $40? It should be $40?
Yes, sorry, that would be a typo, I guess.
Okay. And I just have one more question. I would really like to see this. I'm not immune to raising the costs.
Yeah.
But is there, I know we talked about it before, I would really like to see this prorated. Because if somebody comes in and buys a dog license in December and pays $20, if it's for spayed or whatever, then they get a bill in January saying your license is due. And they're like, well, I just bought it. But it goes from January to December, so that's why I would like to see some kind of prorating system that if somebody bought a dog license in December, it would only be X amount of dollars and then they would be rebilled the full amount come January.
I think this was brought up before. I think the reason or the concerns would be the time or that would take for the admin staff to calculate it. Not that that'd be difficult, I guess, but that's what I think was brought up before.
I believe that was what it was. It was just for ease and convenience.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
set at January, but I've had people not necessarily complain, but have approached me and saying, well, I just bought the dog tag or cat or whatever in, October, November, December, and I'm paying the full price, and then in January I get another bill, and they're grasping, trying to understand, why that is. So I was just wondering if
I haven't seen any communities surrounding us that have that prorated. There are a couple communities that have a flat fee for the life of the dog, like $50 or $100 for the life of the dog. That's a thought.
Mayor Fox.
Actually, I tend to agree with Councillor Tanaka, but I would probably go with quarterly if you couldn't prorate it per month. And it would be relatively simple. You would just have a laminated chart at your front desk, and it would just say January to April, or first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, or whatever, and just pull it out, and there it is. But my concern is the amount that you're raising this. Like, I think that this is quite substantial. You're doubling. You're doubling a lot of these fees. And when you say it's not for existing licenses, but that's only this year, isn't it? Because next year,
No, I'd say they'd be grandfathered.
They would be grandfathered in?
well then, now you're getting into a lot of administration work because,
Well, no,
well, you got all these people that are getting the $20 rate and their neighbor comes in and says,
Well,
gee, you know, it costs a lot
I
of
think-
money and,
the main reason, I think, for this was so people get more responsible and spayed and neutered their animals.
Totally.
Just for the fact that the cost of the license. But
and so how were the amounts arrived at? Is there any thought? Nothing, just sounds
other
good?
than what we canvassed the other communities.
Other
like-
communities. The pound fees, going to $20 a day, do you get many dogs that are redeemed from the pound?
I would say there's probably, I want to go on a limb, probably half. I haven't checked I'd say half.
Oh, so how many went to the pound in a year, or
I'd have to check back in the
20,
database.
50, 100,
No, maybe 40.
40? And half of those would get redeemed within a day.
Well, depending if the owner's in town, if they're tagged, then they're there until, well, for the 10 days. Until the owner picks it up. But if they're not tagged, then it's only 3 days.
3 days and then they're gone.
Yes.
Right. So 10 days you keep them. That's $200 for that person to get that dog back. Ooh, mind you, 120 in the 10-day. There must not be very many people that are leaving them there that 10 days if they're tagged.
Very, very, very few.
Because you contact them if they're tagged, right?
If there's a phone number, yeah,
Which there would be because they're buying a tag.
there should be.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Yeah,
there
you're on.
should be.
Okay, so I have a concern over the rise in the 10 to the 20 and the 20 to 40. I would have suggested only a $5 increase for the spade and a $10 increase, and then next year do it again. And I would also have gone with, next year, everybody pays the new rate, because
Okay.
this grandfathering in, I think you're setting yourself up for the front staff to have to explain, well, yeah, but you didn't have a dog. Well, you did, but it died, and so we're gonna transfer the license.
You
It would
can't.
just get.
You can't transfer it.
Okay, those were my concerns.
I was just wondering, you said in the background material that the average you found for replacement tags was $1 to $5 from the surrounding communities, and yet we'd be charging 10. Would it be possible even just to lower it to what the average is, like the $5?
It is $5 now, yeah.
Then we're saying that our tags are worth twice as much as our surrounding communities? Is that what we're asking? Like, I'm not trying to be mean
No,
here. I'm
no,
just
no, I understand.
trying to be consistent with what we have in the general area, so that we don't look like we're.
It's very seldom that we ever replace tags anyway. I'm not sure, there might be 2 or 3 a year, but I'm just going from the last time they were amended, and that was 13 years ago. So. This isn't in stone, like, obviously it's what council desires. So. This was just brought in, and the fees were just, they weren't, no rhyme or reason, just other than what the surrounding communities.
Councillor Long?
I tend to agree with Mayor Cox. When we look at the grandfathering in issue, I think it should be a flat rate right across,
Okay.
starting as of next year. We've gone a long, long time without any changes into our fees and rates. And there's a certain amount of responsibility that behooves the dog and cat owner. If you have a pet, you can't let it run around wild. You can't let it run around feral and having kittens and cats and puppies all over the place. And so hopefully with a higher fee rate, they'll take some ownership and responsibility to make sure that their dog or cat is spayed, neutered, and is kept within the yard instead of roaming free. I think it's a good job. Yeah, it's a bit of a jump, I agree, but at the same time, it's the people who are responsible will appreciate it, and the people who complain about this all the time will appreciate it as well, I think. It's a certain responsibility that we have, and I think it's a good thing. So, good job. Except for the grandfathering.
Yeah, I'm in the same agreement, and if you look through the proposed bylaw, nowhere in there does it say that it's going to grandfather people in
Yeah.
or any dog. So if you're saying that, it's saying one thing and the policy doesn't have it written in anywhere, so we'd be breaking our own policy by trying to grandfather them in, because it's not in the policy. So I was concerned about the grandfathering also. The other thing that I was wondering about, and it's for this one and the upcoming, the next bylaw, is the fees bylaw. I thought we were putting together one bylaw for all fees, and was just wondering about that.
We talked about that. We weren't 100% sure whether we were supposed to remove all the schedules or the fees out of this bylaw and just have the fee bylaw. I'm not sure what the process would be on that, so that's why it's still in here.
I think when these fees are set in stone by council, then they will be added to the fees bylaw, and then that will be brought back for ratification by council. You can't be setting these fees and then bringing the fees bylaw all at the same reading. You could if everything was going to go good, but obviously with the discussion, there's going to be changes. So this is so Alan can go back now and draft the bylaw accordingly to what council's recommendations are to him. So.
All right, and the other question I had is, I was intrigued by your idea of just one fee for the lifetime of the dog, because I know that's a challenge for you every year to gather up the new licenses.
Yes. Yeah.
And what's your experience with that, with those other communities? Did you get any feedback from those communities that works better? I think.
I didn't extenuate, investigate it that far. I just noticed that some are, it's a flat fee, but I can look into it.
Actually, maybe that would be a good idea to look into it, because if you're going to go to $40 a year for an unneutered or unspayed, and $20, then if you were to say, okay, it's going to be $100 for the full life of the animal, then within 5 years they would have paid for that license fee. So, I mean, that might be a way to look at it. You would certainly recoup the cost. There's somebody in the gallery that is interested in participating.
No, we can't hear you.
Councillor Long.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Thanks. I think that if we look at a flat fee right at the beginning, especially if we're looking at $50 or $100, then the single mom who wants to get a puppy for their kids, $100 could make or break that decision. $20 over 4 or 5 years, not so bad. And so I'm not sure if that's probably the best way to go. I think it could be cost prohibitive, and it's kind of Scrooge-ish at the end of it all. When you look at families who want to have a pet, and then they know they have to come up with $100 over and above that just to have that pet in town, it could be a detractor, and that may not be fair.
Councillor Danaka.
in this system, and again, I don't know if it's just gonna create more, time-consuming stuff with, I mean, you could have, could that be an option? You know, maybe somebody, you know, you can pay for a year, or you can pay for the life of the pet. There's your choices.
I agree with Councillor Danaka on that. I think that we should, if we're gonna have, having a yearly fee is definitely what we really need to have in place. That's what most communities would. I think having a life of the pet option would probably have other people maybe even step forward and say, I'll just pay it once, because some people don't even, and I know they've told me this, that they don't really want to come and pay 1 year and then forget the next. So once they've actually, so sometimes there's lots of, you know, there's dogs that are running around that we're not getting any sort of fee from, and they're not licensed, and but they may come forward and say, yeah, I'll just pay one-time fee. So you may get those. I do think that we can't grandfather. I agree with that. I think that that's going to be really, that's going to be a nightmare. That's going to be an administrative nightmare for, because we are going to have somebody who has a pet, that pet passed away, and they replaced that pet, and then we're going to have to deal with that as well, because most people will. And 2003 was your last increase?
That's the, yeah.
Yeah. We're sort of even faced with that right now with the rec board too, taking a look at some of the fee increases, and that it's been a long time. I wonder if we should consider putting a policy in place that we re-look at fees more regularly. Like, this is a long time to re-look, and so I agree, it's a large increase, but when you have an increase since 2003, but now we're just more in line with what is being normally charged, right? So it's not a high fee, it's just a high increase based on the fact that we haven't increased. But part of it is maybe our responsibility. Council in the past hasn't sort of forced the hand. We don't have a policy in place that says we should be revisiting fees on most of these policies every 2 years.
So what kind of direction are you giving Constable, Special Constable, Sergeant? What is the, Mr. Blue, are you? Are we going with the large increase in fees and the lifetime, or are we going with not so high a fee increase and a lifetime, or are we going with just this increase? So those are the three possibilities, and I think we need to decide what direction to give to Mr. Bloom on this.
Councillor Danaka. Well, right now we have a motion on the table from Councillor Panasic, which is the first reading of this bylaw. So we should vote on that and then decide what direction we're going to give administration and or the bylaw officer.
If we can agree to another, like I'm thinking we may want to, I can withdraw my motion. We can make another motion if we can agree that it would be, you know, to come back with a revamp of this, but we should say what do we see as the price so that it doesn't go back another time. And I think I just suspect that everybody would agree of giving the homeowner the option of having that lifetime license. I think putting that in there is a good idea, so we can have that option built in, and then I think we need to decide on what rate we would be comfortable with.
Councillor Long.
As much as I don't want to take this discussion too much longer over licensing fees, but if somebody purchases a dog and then the dog doesn't last a year and they've dropped $100 and they're going to come back and say, we just got our dog, unfortunately was hit by a car or whatever, and we want our money back. You can see it happening. You can see it happening. And so I don't think a lifetime of the dog, because it's a pet and it's an animal and it's got all the problems and issues, and I think that a yearly rate is the way to go. That's
if we're gonna go with the fee for the lifetime of a pet, I think it has to be in the bylaw that if the pet expires, you know, within X amount of time, you know, like, it has to be explained to that person that if you spend the $100 for what, or whatever we choose to make that fee, if you spend that money and your dog dies or gets hit by a car or whatever, you will not be refunded that money. The next dog you get, you will need to either buy a yearly tag or a lifetime tag. But I think we're getting really convoluted in this simple bylaw. I mean, we've already spent a half an hour on one bylaw.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's people's choices, right? So we can put it in there, and it's a choice that they can make. So do we want to withdraw that bylaw or that motion, Brian, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I'm fine with withdrawing that motion.
Okay. Does somebody want to make another motion, or are we just going to direct administration with?
We could make the motion,
I guess it is one that.
yeah, that council receive, or that administration rework the bylaw and bring it back to council.
Do you want recommendations, or have you got what you think you need based on conversation?
I'm pretty certain I know what council's looking at,
Okay.
or looking for.
Is everybody good with the motion?
I think we should specify what we want to see in the bylaw.
I was gonna say, I don't think you know what I want. I'll go with the third option that I said. I will agree with these fees if you put in an option for a lifetime, that they have a choice. And I actually suggest $100. I don't think that that's unreasonable. I don't think it's too high, and I don't think it's too low, and it would recover our costs. So that's where I would be going with that.
Brian?
What we can do is, we'll draft a new bylaw, email it to all the council for questions or concerns on it. He can provide the feedback back to Alan, and then we can bring it back to the next meeting.
Councillor Danaka?
And please include in theirs, as Mayor Cox had suggested about the quarterly. What was your wording on that? Sorry?
That the license fees be prorated quarterly. So that would be, and so if you buy it in December, you pay the quarter, October, November, December price, and then you get billed the full year. But you get that quarter. So there's a quarterly rate.
Any other comments? Is that a concern at all for you?
I just thought of it. People are gonna wait till the fourth quarter, the last quarter to pay their dog fee. There's gonna be some like that. I'm not gonna say everybody's gonna do that, but
So if you catch them ahead of time, what's your penalty for unlicensed dog if you pick it up?
$50.
Oh, increase that.
Okay. No, anyway.
Okay.
Are we good? No.
Just one last, I got thinking about that. Are you, like that, I do see what you're saying. So if I have a dog and I bought a dog tag in 2015, and now it's 2016, and I don't pay my bill until October, then I would only pay for the one quarter?
That's my thoughts on it, but
I'm not sure if I agree with that. I could see if it's a new pet that just gets purchased and comes in, but if it's an ongoing pet, I think it should be the yearly rate. That's my feelings on it.
But he's illegal for that 3 quarters, right? If
well,
it was-
that's where the final come in, but
Yeah.
I just thought I'd throw that out there. Let's move on.
Mayor Cox? You're good? Are we good with the motion? You guys want it read back? Good?
No, it was just.
Just a receiver for information?
No, it was for administration to bring it back to us.
All those in favor? Carried. Two C two, bylaw 216 traffic. Do we have a motion? Councillor Long.
Council give first reading to bylaw 022016 this 9th day of February 2016.
This one, you'll see that the amendments are, first amendment would be for the definition of a public place. This was brought to my attention by one of the lawyers in town that they didn't indicate what a public place was in the bylaw. So that's why that's there. And the other amendment was 5.14, a person shall cross a highway or street unless it is at the marked crosswalk, traffic light, or intersection, or as indicated in the Traffic Safety Act. I just thought that was needed for public safety. And then the next one was 7.9C, park within 5 meters of a fire hydrant. There wasn't anything in the bylaw that really pertained to parking next to a fire hydrant. It just indicated a fire lane or a fire exit. So I thought a fire hydrant needed to be in there. So those are the three additions to the bylaw.
Mayor Cox.
I had a citizen approach me to say that they have a fire hydrant in front of their house. So
Yep.
what happens in that situation?
Well, as long as there's access to the fire hydrant, and it's not blocked by a vehicle or a trailer or anything, then I don't see any issues with it.
They'd be contravening the bylaw.
Well, I'm just going off of what the Traffic Safety Act has, and it's 5 meters, so obviously there's going to be some discretion here,
Okay.
because there is cul-de-sacs where fire hydrants are situated, and it's pretty limited parking, so I can understand the concerns, but obviously it's going to be discretionary.
And the other concern I have is, we don't have we never had a jaywalking bylaw then.
Well, not that it pertained to crossing this middle of the street, yeah.
I'm hesitant to put in street,
Why?
as, I don't mind highway, but
Street? Okay.
street, you're getting people that are parking across the street from the Royal Bank, and I see that all the time, or across the street from the accountant, or the laundromat, or the post office,
No,
or
this
I
is-
could go on and on.
Oh, I know, I understand that too, and I realize that. That's totally a discretionary item too. But where I'm coming from is people that they don't take into consideration the motor vehicles, like
They
They're
walk
not-
right out. I
they
agree.
walk right out.
Yeah.
And they're not in any hurry, they're just
Sauntering along.
sauntering across. So that's the ones I'm,
Okay. The discretion, I don't mind. I would just hate to see us, and yet I don't mind that highway, because I believe that definitely is, it's an issue there. Across
And
from Super A and Field Store. You
and
see
again,
that all
I'm
the
just,
time.
I'm just following the Traffic Safety
Yeah.
Act, because it is in that too, so I just,
So if it's in highway traffic safety, do we have to have it in here?
well, this whole bylaw pertains to the Traffic Safety Act.
So it's a lot of repetition here as,
Some of it, yeah.
okay, that's all.
Any other comments? Councillor Danaka?
And just reading through this, on the very last page of the bylaw, page 60 of the agenda, and this is probably a discretionary thing, but it just seems, I was just kind of like, really? 16.1, fires. Pass, walk, drive within location of fire is designated by peace officer or fire department. I'm not exactly sure what that means. So if somebody walks by when there's a fire or drives by and a fire's going on, you could charge them $100?
Well, if they're impeding the operation of the fire department, yeah.
Okay, that I understand.
Or if they're driving over a fire hose, yeah.
Okay,
Or they're parked in the middle of the street.
being looky-loos kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Does that clarify that?
I can review it and look, yeah.
Councillor Gilroy?
I think I was just going to agree with Councillor Rose. Maybe it could be changed to those who impede, because we know that sometimes there are rubberneckers, people who like to look at the fires and park in that, and obviously driving by is not as much of a danger as I want to stop and watch what's happening. And so maybe if it's impeding because this is a safety issue here.
Yes.
And I know you're passionate about safety, and I appreciate that. And I know you use discretion quite well with all these things. I guess the other point I had was, I'm glad you said discretion, because we can't legislate good sense. I wish we could get the parents, and I am one of the ones who look both ways, make sure my kids look both ways before we cross. And we wave traffic on if it's going to allow them to get by safely. I wish we could do that get the parents to understand that the safety of their children should be the priority. But we can't legislate that, but it's nice to know that you would take it into consideration, you and your fellow officer.
Yes.
Mayor Cox?
The 16.1 is in reference to page 41, which is the explanation of what the $100 fine is for. So they don't need to elucidate what the rationale is, because it's in the wording of 16.1. So they don't need any more other than to say, here's what the fine is.
Councillor Panasic?
That was the exact point I was going to mention also.
Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor with the motion? Councillor Danaka?
I make a motion that council gives second reading to bylaw 02/2016 this 9th day of February 2016.
All those in favor? Do we have a motion for third reading?
I will make a motion that council with unanimous approval, that with unanimous approval, direct that bylaw 02/2016, the traffic bylaw, be presented for third reading. And that council, upon anonymous consent, give third and final reading to bylaw 02/2016, this the 9th day of February 2016.
All those in favor? Although that was anonymous consent, not unanimous consent, but we did understand what you meant.
Thank you.
Carried. No, good enough? Nothing. No report. Okay, 3A, minutes of regular council meeting. Councillor Danaka.
I make a motion that council approve the minutes from the January 26, 2016 regular meeting of council as presented.
Any comments? All those in favor? Carried. So we jump down to 5A, finance. One, financial support donation request policy, page 70. Do I have a motion? Mayor Cox.
I move that council approves the financial support donation request policy 46-2016 as presented.
Comments? All those in favor? Carried.
You wrote a good one.
There you go, Brian.
Number 2, investment policy, page 78. Do I have a motion? Mayor Cox.
I move that we adopt policy 13.
That we adopt policy 13-26, the investment policy for use by the town of High Prairie.
Do you want to speak to that?
Only if there's any questions, as it states in my notes there preceding the policy. This did come back, I think, back in October was when we first started talking about this. We did bring it back to January. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be here at that meeting, but I did provide copies of the policies that we currently had, some other policies, plus the stuff we got from our potential investment advisors. So we've sort of cobbled together the best of all the worlds, based a lot of it on the county's policy, what I had for a policy here before, and then also what we received advice from various investment managers, what they say should be in there in the policy. Basically, the crux of it all is you have to follow the MGA. I think it's section 250. So you can't go investing in any wild schemes or anything. But currently, right now, going back for a long time, the only investment we've been doing is we've been setting our money in a savings account at the local bank. And so we have not been getting the maximum benefit from those funds. So this then would now give the authority to administration to then go out. Once we have an investment manager appointed, to work with them to transfer funds around, so we have money that's available for long-term, some of our reserves, we can put them in for 1 or 2 years. If we have funds that are not required for short-term, 30-day, 60-day, 90-day funds, we can make those investments and still get probably better returns than what we're getting from the bank. So hopefully we can start catching some benefit out of this. Any questions regarding any of it?
Councillor Panasic.
Yeah, I had some questions on this one is, like which funds would be included? Which money would you be investing? Is there any indication of, is it all of the reserve funds? Is it some of them? Like it just says reserve funds and operating funds. Is there any other funds?
Well, that's when you get into the operating funds. So any funds that we have available that we're not required on a short-term basis, so we'd have to do some cash flow analysis to see what do we need in cash to meet our commitments for the next 30 days, 60 days, 6 months, etc. So anything we got above that, we can then put that into 60-day money or 6 months short-term investments, and then at the end of that time, get the money back. Usually with those funds also, there's a capability, should something come up with an emergency, that you can withdraw early. You're just not going to get all the benefit out of the return from it. But of course, we wouldn't throw all our eggs out there. We'd keep somebody in the bank here and just to keep it going.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we should have something like what you've said in there so that, if it's not someone using good common sense like what you're talking about, the policy should say, we'll make sure we're only investing money that's not needed.
That's what the treasurer would be hired for. So I don't think you need to put exactly, how do you do your job? That's what's in the job description. This is the policy.
Okay. I'm just the other thing that a small word in the on page 82, under the investment manager. As a policy statement, the town of High Prairie currently retains the services. That shouldn't be in a policy. It should just say something along the lines of the town of High Prairie will or will not or may retain the services of, or shall, like what's, you know.
We currently do work with the Royal Bank as our investment manager.
But that shouldn't be in a policy statement. That's my point. It should say that the town of High Prairie shall use an investment manager, or maybe we shall not use an investment manager, or we may at our discretion use one. But to say we currently use one could be, you know, it makes this irrelevant in a bit. So I would say either we will use an investment manager or we don't. That's
Basically, we currently use the Royal Bank of Canada here as our local branch.
Yeah.
We have in here also that we'll go out and we will appoint an investor on a 3-year term, and it'll be up for renewal every 3 years. That's in the policy. And following this presentation, there is something there to go out for a request for proposal for an investment manager. So the idea would be, we would always have an investment manager. It would never be up to the treasurer or the CAO to be the investment manager.
then I would change the wording till shall use
Oh.
an investment manager instead of currently uses.
Yeah, right now it's just
Currently-
more of a statement,
Yeah.
otherwise it's a policy, we should be, it
That's
should be
right.
telling
Okay.
us what we have to do, right?
Shall retain.
Yeah.
Okay, with that wording there.
Mayor Cox?
Well, I see 10.1 and 10.2 is exactly the
Yeah.
same statement if you're gonna put shall in there.
No, yeah, 10.2 does have the shall. It says the treasurer and CAO shall provide a recommendation to council before engaging an external investment
Okay.
manager.
So the one at the Royal Bank is actually, they're our internal investment manager in that they give us investment advice because.
They do
we
that as
bank
part of our
with them.
banking services that we get from them.
Exactly.
Yes. When we
So-
go up for the request proposal and talk about afterwards, then we would be
Then
bringing
it's
back.
10.2, but 10.1, it says that we have the advantage of our in-house, or, well, not in-house because they don't work for us, but it's the investment manager that comes with our banking services. So we're gonna have that person anyways, but you wanna go out and get an external.
I want to get somebody who's qualified to give us
Exactly.
investment advice, and whose job that is not,
So you can put that in, but I would just change it. They currently,
okay.
Currently
No, and
uses-
I've just did that with an amendment here, the town of High Prairie shall retain the services of external under 10.1.
well, then you don't need 10.2.
No, because 10.2 that says that the finance or CAO will bring the recommendation to council
Oh,
to
I see.
appoint. Council will still appoint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Long?
Does the AUMA provide services, or do they have protocols and suggested guidelines?
AUMA, one of their business services is Munifunds. They do this, and so when we go up for request for proposal for these, they would be one of the groups would be sending out the request for proposal along with several others. They would then have the opportunity to bid on our services and provide us a list of what they could provide and what the cost would be, if anything. You know, their back end, well, they basically all are back end. You don't see it up front, like they say, you've got your investment, you get the returns, and, oh, here's 10%, you gotta pay for that for us doing that. You never see that in any of those investments.
I sort of felt like Councillor Panasic, where we were talking about the liquidity, if we go back to 3.2. And we talk about the town of High Prairie's investment portfolio will remain sufficiently liquid to enable the town of High Prairie to meet all operating and capital requirements, which might be reasonably anticipated.
Yeah, so that just tells us what to do.
Well, sufficiently liquid is an interpretation, right?
No, if you're in treasurer or whatever, then you do know what having, you know, that terminology means. And this is a common policy that's across municipalities, but it basically says that I can't go out and put all the eggs in the basket for 6 years. I have to be able to do things, my job.
Would that not, and I get what you're saying, but would that not be your interpretation? If you thought that that was reasonably sufficiently liquid, but that would not really be liquid, but you haven't gone against our policy because our policy is really vague?
No, it's, I think it's quite clear. We got three basic principles or objectives into the policy for investment: safety, the liquidity, and return of investment. Now, the liquidity just basically speaks to the fact that we have to keep money available to do their day-to-day work. And then we invest, whether it's long-term, short-term, 60-day, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years investments. Because the longer you invest your money, the higher rate of return you do get, especially right now. But if you need to spell it out word for word and how my job's done, then you may as well take the job, because I don't, that's part of the job. It's like telling the public works manager how to drain a sewer line.
Councillor Long.
Yes, you're correct. I wouldn't have worded it quite that way, but our job here is not to micromanage our management team. And we have to have confidence in our management that they're going to do the job to the best of their ability. Not all of us have the same expertise. Not all of us have, and 4 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, there will be many different people, many different expertise and experiences, but they may not have the ability to do the treasurer's job or the chief's job or whatever. We set policy and we do the best we can. It's up to our management team to make sure that we don't put all our eggs in one basket. I don't think it's up to us to say how many eggs we put in that basket, where we should divest and diversify. That's not our role, I don't believe. It's their job to make sure that our town runs as stable as possible, financially speaking in this case. We set the policy, we set the guidelines, but we let them do their jobs, and I don't think it's our job to say, Herman, you got to do it this way. Are we? I understand what he's saying.
You know, and I agree, but I also disagree, because I think that this has come back to this council, whether it be a CAO, previous treasurer, and it's this treasurer on occasion that comes back to us and says the previous treasurer did something and now I've got to fix it, right? Just the same as if there's policy and guidelines, I just want to make sure that we're helping put in place policies that doesn't matter what treasurer it is, it's clear. So if somebody says, I think it's sufficient to lock in all dollars that we have into a 6-year GIC and you can't access it, well, that's not very liquid, but maybe that's interpretation, because I'm sure the lawyer would say that sufficient isn't a term that they're going to that you're going to have done anything wrong, right? Like you have total reign on that, and I don't doubt for a second that you know exactly what to do.
Yeah, okay, with that, if you're looking for the words in there, it says, enable the town of High Prairie to meet all operating and capital requirements which might be reasonably anticipated. So if council passes its capital plans, its operating budgets, everything else that's required of council, then we have a capital plan. We know what we've got to have money available for 1 year down the road for capital projects, what we require for this year down the road, or in a multi-year capital plan 5 years down the road. So we're not going to take the money that we would require a year from now and commit that to a long-term investment. We keep that to something that's a year. That's just part of doing the work. You know, and if you hire, I would hope, if I should leave, a qualified treasurer, then that person reasonably should know what this means. You know, it's part of the duties.
I hear you, and I'm not trying to say that you wouldn't, but you do know exactly what I'm talking about, because you've been
But this is a policy, it's not a job description. Thank you.
Yeah, and if I'm just playing the devil's advocate here, what in this policy right now, like we've talked and said that we're better off taking it out of just the bank savings account that's making no money. And that's where the previous treasurer kept it in there, and that was deemed adequate, right, by him. What in here is saying this, because keeping it in there, it makes it safe, it's liquid, And you can argue that it's a reasonable return on investment because it is safe and it is liquid. So how could we, we want to see a better return on our investment, and I don't know if there's anything in here that says how that's going to happen. How we would prevent something that just happened to us happen.
I think there's in here where it says there is a requirement to report back to council on where our investment money is at on a regular basis in here. If you go through the policy, reporting. Treasurer will provide regular reports to the CAO. The CAO reports semi-annually to council, noting investment on hand, activity during the period, and income or losses on investments. So there is reporting going back to council. No, it's not going to be every meeting. It gets a little overboard, but it's going to be coming back to council, so they do get that information back. As far as the feeling that just to put it into savings account and leave it there is not necessarily a fact of it being safe. It just requires no work.
No, I agree. And that's why I wanted to see something in there.
And the next person may just be happy to do that, and if it's not called on, if he just leaves it there to draw the little bit over prime interest. But then again, council, when they get the report back on the investments, would also get that information, and then they could question whoever that person is, or myself, on why we're having our money strictly in those investments or in the savings accounts and not making the money work for us.
So just to summarize, it is the treasurer deciding which ones we go into but it is council that could say we want to go somewhere else.
If they spotted something on the investment list, and I can go back to one experience I've had when I was working for the Cypress View Foundation in Medicine Hat. This is a simple one, but we put a list of investments out. We had some counselors there who were maybe not the friendliest, but with the best one of the best rates to get some of the money we had. We went out to Quebec Hydro. They were looking for 6-month money, and they were offering the best rate available at the time was Quebec Hydro, so we did put a couple $100,000 into Quebec Hydro. While some of the people that were on the board said there's no way we were putting our money into Quebec, and therefore take that money out of that investment. We don't care if we're going to lose some money and put it someplace else, but we don't see anything with the word Quebec on it. But I'm sorry, it's true. But you do also put things into GMAC. They'll have money come up from GMAC for anywhere from 30 days to 2 years, which is GM. But that would show on the list. God forbid, but if you got that small of petty, because basically what you're looking for is your best money return that you can get that's under the Municipal Government Act allowable. So if there was somebody there who wasn't a GM fan, was strictly a Dodge man, not a good reason to say, well, we're not going to let the money go there. When I work with an investment manager, or if I'm not here, even the CAO, if we had money coming due, the investment manager would come up and say, phone you, say you've got money coming up at the end of the week. How much of that do you need to turn around, or do you need some of that money back available? And here's where, how long do you need it to go out for? And he'll give you a list of options on what the rates are.
Just one last question, if I can, really quick, is what's the cost-benefit analysis, of having an investment manager? Because, the times are tight, and we're going to be spending money on this person doing it. Are we going to easily recoup that because we're dealing with significant...
Well, most of that money comes out at the back end. You don't see it on your bill. It comes out of the people that are looking for the money. If people are going through an investment managers, and it's not an individual, you're dealing with CIBC Wood Gundy or something. You're dealing with larger groups of investment groups. They're not getting their paycheck off of you. They're getting the money off of the people that are looking for investors. When you get the request for proposal, when they come forward for you, they will usually divulge in there what our cost usually is this much within the background. You'll find that there's one that has hardly anything at all in there, so they provide it as a service to municipalities. But they do have access to a lot of funds.
Councillor Gilroy.
If I understand this correctly, basically it doesn't matter who, no offense, the treasurer is, they will be given some direction by a council-approved manager who will then give the treasurer suggestions on where to invest everything.
Yep.
Right? So,
I would talk this over with Brian. If we had
Right.
if we had our place, an investment manager in place, I would talk it over with Brian. Say, okay, here's where we get some money coming available. Let's say we got $500,000 is coming due at the end of the month. We're going to need some of this money probably in April, so we can put some of it into 60-day money and some of it into 90-day
So
money.
You're gonna use your good sense, or the
That's
treasurer at that point will use the good sense to either accept or reject the suggestions of that council accepted portfolio manager that you were talking about. You were talking about hiring a outside consultant.
He would give a list of options.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could accept it or reject it, and if we, after 3 years, I think it's a review of 3 years here, 10-4, if we don't like the way that they're handling it, we just go get a new
We
external.
would put it back out for request for proposal again.
Right.
Same thing as if administration wasn't comfortable with whoever we decided to bring on as an investment manager, we would also bring that back to
So it's
council.
just getting you another advisor to make sure we do the best thing.
And somebody
we can
that's
with
actually
people's
working
money.
in that field. The person at the local branch doesn't necessarily have it. But having said that, having spoke to the Royal Bank, they do have an investment arm of their operation also, and so we would give that to them, and they would be bidding in on this as well. And we'd also go with the other local banking entities in town, as well as the commercial people that do this. I think we're ahead one topic on this right now. We're just working on the policy.
Any other comments?
That council adopt policy 13/2016, the investment policy for use by the town of High Prairie.
I was just, I'd just make that point, if we could, with the amendment to 10.1 of replacing the word currently to shall, if we could put that in the, if that's a friendly amendment, I guess.
Is everybody good with the policy? Ready to vote? Brian, do you have a question? Okay. You approve the amendment? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed, everybody voted, right? Okay, 3, financial services, page 84. Do you have a motion?
I move to receive the presentation related to request for proposal 2016-001, investment management services for information.
Comments? Do you have anything to say?
That's basically this is what this is just for information only. So that if somebody on the street or one of the banking entities finds, says, you're out there, you're looking for an investment, how can we have to let people in council aware of what we're doing, so that when this goes out, it goes to the bank or whatever, if they're working factories, whatever, as it is in policy now, this is what it says that we will do the RFP, the request for proposal, and then once we get that, we analyze it, we bring it back to council for appointment. So this is strictly for information only.
All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Administration, 5B1, CAO vacation, page 101. Mayor Cox.
I move that council approve CAO Brian Martinson's vacation from March 18th, 2016 to April 4th, 2016.
Comments? Concerns? All those in favor? Oh.
We give them vacations?
You snuck that in there. All those in favor? 2, council appointments, 102. Mayor Cox.
I move that council appoint the mayor and councilors to the committees that are allocated from the attachment of February 9th chart.
Comments? Anybody have thoughts on the matter?
Well, the last time we did it, we went one by one with either each counselor or each group to see if we went through that. I don't know if that'd be better or not, because some we may agree with and some we may not.
Well, I wonder, what does anybody think? Wonder if we start with the new counselors, because you guys are going to be taking on brand new committees, and we have to find out what your thoughts are on your appointments before we move too far, I guess.
Yeah, no, you first. I'm fine. Looking at my list of duties, I'm fine with those duties. I don't know what, I will learn as I go, I guess, and I'll make as many meetings as I can, I guess. Do what I can.
Okay.
I like it.
Councillor Gilroy?
Actually, I thought his appointments were really good.
I do agree, thank you.
I was just telling him that he's great for the oil and gas industry. But no, I like all the ones I have, and I look forward to being given the contacts and the parameters for each of the committees, so I know what I'm getting myself into.
Any other comments, concerns? So what did we want to do with them? Did we want to take the motion and... Right, but it's just sort of confusing because like Councillor Panasic said, we did it individually before, so I just want to make sure that everybody's happy with that. So maybe we'll just the recommended actions aren't the same as what you're talking about though, right?
The motion was to accept the appointments as per the chart presented.
So do you want us to read off the chart of the list? Everybody good?
Attach the chart to the minutes.
Okay. All those in...
Another, I think. Just as long as we get through them and like you need it in the minutes, what each one's going on to. And so that's the only thing, either go through by, and then at the end, after we have the discussion, they could be the same motion we could vote on, and it might end up the same way. What I'm saying is we could just go through and say, okay, Mayor Cox, Councillor Danaka, Councillor Gilroy, Panasic, Courtley, like we've started, go through and see if everybody's happy with those and move on. And then say yes or no, based on the chart, which is the motion.
If we want to do it that way, is everybody okay? We'll go through Councillor or Mayor Cox first. You can approve what you're on, is that... Or just as promotion? It doesn't matter. Councillor Danaka.
I think Mayor Cox's motion covers it. Councillor Gilroy and Councillor Courtley they know what committees they're on and they've agreed to them. I think, as I said, I think Mayor Cox's motion covers this section.
Brian?
The only change I can see on here now is that Mayor Cox now is on the Recreation Board, and you are the alternate. That's the only change from my recommended action.
Okay, and I'll just speak to that, to the fact that I will vote against it, but just because we were at a rec board meeting again last night where previous meeting I was named chair and I now have signing authority with the rec board. If I'm not on the rec board, then we'll have to change the signing authority. They'll have to change the chair again. So other than that, I'm fine with all the other appointments. If there's no other comments or concerns, I'll vote. Councillor Panasic.
Well, I think we have a policy, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's more people interested in one position than there are positions, then usually council would vote to see. So I don't know if there's a conflict where we've got, and maybe I'm wrong, but if you want to be on, you want to be on rec board, and he wants to be on the rec board, we got 3 people looking at 2 positions. So we have to work on that one and how to address that.
I would also remind council that we have a motion already previous to this regarding the positions on the rec board, and that was that the decision was that the mayor would stay on until October 9th, the Councillor Rose would be there until February 9th, and then one of the new councillors would be tasked with the rec board upon their February 9th election results, or from the so we have that motion already. You would have to vote to rescind, I believe, that motion, and then go again. So
For the record, the recommended motions or the recommended actions that came from the CAO was for any of the new councillors or the old councillors that took positions from the old councillors, which put yourself and I on the rec board interimly. The recommended action from the CAO was to have all of those appointments till February 9th, until we were sitting here with new council and we were making decisions to put new councillors on those positions. You made a motion against the recommended action from the CAO, which was to put yourself on the rec board until the end of October. It was approved, but it wasn't necessarily the recommended action. At one point, we had said we would hold those positions for new councillors to see if that's the ones that they wanted to fill. I don't feel like we, one, gave them the opportunity, or we're actually fulfilling what the rec board is asking. Councillor Gilroy.
I believe that the motion the mayor made was to go with the chart, but the chart and the recommended action on the request for decision, it says Mayor Cox as an alternate, but on the chart it has her as a member for the High Prairie and District Recreation Board. Which is it?
it's the chart that the membership.
Okay,
the
so
motion refers
the
to
recommended
chart.
action here is not as effective as what's on the chart.
No, according to the procedures, the mayor makes the recommendation for who sits on what committees. And if there are, to the best of her ability, and that if there is a difference of opinion, then it is discussed to council as a whole. So the recommendation, although it comes from the administrator, at the time that I gave the final decision as to who I was placing on what committees, this was not updated to reflect the chart. But the chart is the most recent. And the chart reflects the motions that were made at previous meetings regarding the committees that were vacant by the lack of the 2 councillors that had resigned.
For the record, though, our policy does say that the mayor shall, after consulting with each councillor and by using the mayor's best judgment, create a list of appointments and recommendations and bring that summary to the organizational meeting for ratification. Should a councillor dispute or disagree with the appointment recommendation, council as a whole shall debate the appointment by majority vote, complete the final determination. And just for the record, because this is becoming a bigger issue than it ever should, 3 times in a row, I put my name forward to be on the rec board as my first and only, and in one case, my only choice for committee. And not one time was I ever consulted. But I mean, in your best judgment, you've chosen to put yourself on the rec board 3 years in a row. I'm just a little bit disappointed about that coming forward again, especially after being at a rec board meeting. And I've only been at 2, and in one of them I was nominated and voted in as chair,
Are you finished?
with you the only one not voting for me. And I am finished, yes.
You're finished? I believe that, as you're right, this is becoming quite a tortured discussion. And you were not here when the motions were made, who is to be on until October, which I had talked to the councillors that were here, and I had said that the rec board is going through some rough times right now, and they need some stability. The chair of the rec board is supposed to be a town councillor. Councillor Rose, as appointed as an alternate, or as the meeting came to the meetings, looked at the 2 councillors for the county and nominated one of them, because she said we need experience here. It is okay. I looked at her, one of the councillors at the county said, well, it is the town's turn, and we'll nominate Councillor Rose. What happened to the experience that was required? So I'm taken aback by this. I don't feel that again, the rec board is having problems. We have budget problems that is coming up at every meeting, and I am not feeling that we are getting good direction, that I'm requesting direction from the council as to how we are going to deal with this. And I don't feel that we are getting solid support that we need from the councillors that are going to be sitting on this rec board, whether it's through personalities or whether it is through inexperience, because I think you need some financial experience in order to figure out what you're doing. I have been sitting on that board, you're right, for 3 years, and I have seen no change in the attitude of the recreation board in trying to bring our costs down. In fact, they have, the recreation board has brought us a budget specifically after they were asked to bring it down of more than what it was that they were asked to present. So I feel that as an experienced councillor that I should be on the rec board. The council agreed with me in December that I would be there until till the organizational meeting in October, and after discussion with the CAO, he suggested that Councillor Courtney would bring something to the table that would enhance our position on that recreation board. So that is why the motion was made, to reflect the chart and not the recommendation of the CAO.
I'll just comment one more time regarding the financial aspect of it. For starters, my job is a financial planning, right? So I do have a financial background. Second, when in one of the 2 meetings that I was actually at and privy to, we were asked, well, probably prior to the meeting prior to the last meeting, the rec board was asked to present their budget because we did not approve their budget. A budget of which the town councillors, and I may be confused, but I thought you were part of that because that was passed just recently, that their budget was approved by the rec board, which is 2 town councillors and 2 MD councillors or county councillors. Now that budget was brought forward to us and we didn't approve it. The last rec board meeting, we were asked to send somebody from the rec board to present the budget to our council. So I don't understand why, if you've been on that board for now 3 years, I was the one that went through line item by line item with the rec director in order to present that budget to our council and make sure that our council understood where the increases were. So I did that the last meeting. Councillor Long.
With all due respect, Mr. Courtley, Councillor Courtley, I have a suggestion. And we were elected to represent this town. and to work together and put aside our differences. And my recommendation here is to have the mayor and Councillor Rose sit on the board with Councillor Courtly as the alternate. And between the two strong-headed individuals that we have, that we might be able to get something done. And we might be able to represent a bit of a tour de force, if you will, on the rec board, and to put aside the differences to work for the best interests of this community and to make this board work. A board which I've been on the record should be dissolved and shouldn't be in existence, yet it still exists. And the best way that I can see is to have two people who have different points of view but are strong-willed and knowledgeable and compassionate. You two should be on the board, and you two should be making this thing work. That's my suggestion.
Councillor Gilroy.
No offense to my fellow new councillor.
I'll bring it to.
I tend to agree with Councillor Long only in the sense that if Councillor Rose has just been nominated as a chair, they show some sort of confidence in you, and you're showing you have the financial background and things like that. And I'm just thinking also the reputation of this town, because to suddenly flip-flop, I'm not sure that's in the best interest. When you're talking about stability that this town needs at this time. And I know that Arlen's a servant who would be more than happy to give you all the advice you want, whether an alternate or a regular member.
Councillor Danaka.
I would just like to hear what Councillor Courtly has to say about his appointment.
As far as my appointment to the High Prairie District Recreation Board, my background is recreation. I've been involved in recreation my whole life. I've been in all facets of it. My background is also finance. I have multiple businesses in town. I bring a lot to the plate. And as far as who should and who shouldn't, I'm sure we'll bring something to the plate at one time or another. But as it stands right now, sitting watching, being the very first meeting, thinking, you have good points, Linda, but I feel that there's a lot of emotion involved in that. And I don't think emotion's a thing to be bringing into that. It's a board that has to represent our community. Calm minds will prevail, I think. You obviously had, you were at the meetings. You're in as a chair now, correct? So there must be, they must see something good there. I have not been to the recreation board meeting yet. So, if you want me to back down and not be on there, that's fine. I just want it to work. It's totally up to the rest of the board, or up to the rest of the councillors, but I'm more than willing and more than able to do the job. But there's underlying reasons here, and it's unnecessary. Just saying. Thank you.
One more point I'd like to bring up, and I know that this has been something that this council sort of talked about, and maybe everybody feels slightly different, but ultimately, and even Mayor Cox has brought up that the Johns Rood report and its concern over the fact that the Recreation Board shouldn't be a board. It should be a department of the town. That's something that everybody has an opinion on. But I think that there certainly is value. When we look at that, we look at other communities, and now we've been on a new council for a couple of years, and we've had the opportunity to see what they do in other communities. And yeah, in a lot of cases, it is a department of the town because we own the facilities. Most towns do own the facilities. The reason why it's a board is because there was a lack of trust in the past. There has been some problems. In order to make it work, the board was formed, and now we do have a very functional relationship with the county over the, with the rec board. In order to make that change and to make that transition, I really feel strongly that we need a good relationship with the board. The board needs to trust the town of High Prairie again before we can actually transition back. I'm not saying that that's something that's going to happen in the near future, but I'm not saying I'm against it. I actually see that there's definitely value in it. Whether we're close to that, I don't know. I think that it's something that we can transition to, but you very much need 2 people from the town and 2 people from the county that can actually work together and make sure that the recommendations and the information that's brought forward in those meetings are brought back to our council accurately and fairly, and in the spirit of being able to work together and build trust. And I haven't really seen that we've come very much more forward in the past couple of years.
I would have to rebut that. I think that we've come a long way. We have had some good working relationships with Councillor Emter on the board and Councillor Carrier, and I would not hesitate to say at all that we have fantastic working relationships with the county. So I don't know where you would come from saying that we don't have a good relationship with the county. So,
Councillor Gilroy.
I know I'm monopolizing the time. I just one quick question. As an alternate, in this particular case, I just heard the passion of Arlen here. He'd be able to be at all the meetings if he wanted to, and he'd be able to, or would he not be allowed there? How does that work with the alternates, please?
the alternate, those are public meetings. Anyone actually can come to any of the Recreation Board meetings. As an alternate, you could come, but you would be not paid as, and you would be a non-voting member. So.
Councillor Gilroy.
Did you say that the next organizational meeting for changes of this is in the fall?
October 23rd.
Okay, the question is it, since you were also talking, Madam Mayor, about experience working with the council, that I'm not trying to give you more work, but as an alternate, if Councillor Courtley happened to come to the meetings, give you all sorts of advice, that he would be offered that position as not an alternate in the fall, because he'd have the experience, plus he has the vast experience that makes him qualified for it now. Is that a possibility?
In the organizational meetings, all the committee appointments go around, and I try to give everyone number one choice. So I would have to actually go back when Councillor Rose said that she did not receive her number one choice. I would have to go back because I would be surprised that she did not receive number one, because I gave everybody number one all the time. So if he put it down as number one in October, there's two positions. He would probably receive number one.
For the record, it was down number one all 3 years. Brian, can you confirm that it was down number one this year?
But I will withdraw my name.
This year? For the rest of this term? But I will expect, if I put it down as number one in the fall, that I actually receive it as a choice. And we can vote on this unless somebody has anything else to say.
I do.
Yes, Arlen.
Councillor Courtley.
No problem. You know what, he might have a good point. If you really want to and you're already there as a chair, I'm fine switching as an alternate. I'll just come to the meetings. That's okay. I'll come and I'll learn, and I'll be there for support, and we'll go that way if that pleases you. I'm
You know
fine
what?
with that.
I think that you are a great choice, and I think that this rec board does need to see some changes, and it would be great to see somebody new on there. And it's a small term right now. You're only getting basically 6 months, and then we'll have to make decisions in the fall. So it's a good opportunity for you to see whether it's, whether it's a fit and whether you like that board and what kind of things that you guys think that it can change from here. But yeah, I'm fine. I'll step back and you guys can go forward, and we'll just go with the recommended, Mayor Cox's recommended council appointments. Any
Call the
other
question.
concerns?
Call the question.
All those in favor? Eminent racist.